The great palace stood tall under its twin moons, glowing with silver light that washed over every stone tower. Inside those walls lived Queen, ruler of a proud alien empire known for discipline, honor, and ancient laws older than many stars. She carried herself with calm strength, her violet eyes sharp with wisdom earned through a lifetime of war and sacrifice. But even with all her power, a quiet fear lived inside her. Her people were fatting. A sickness touched their young, their warriors weakened each season, and their scientists found no cure. She needed an alliance, something bold, something impossible, something that would change the fate of her race. That was how she met Elias Ward, the human who would become her unexpected husband. He was not a soldier, not a noble, not even a man of wealth or fame. He had been a traveler wandering through the galaxy with an old ship and a heart full of stubborn kindness. When he first stepped into her throne room, he looked out of place, plain clothes, calm eyes, hands from years of work rather than battle. Yet there was something strange about him, a quiet confidence, a steadiness, a warmth that made even the guards glance twice. The Queen noticed it too, though she tried not to show it. Her council argued for weeks. Humans were physically weak compared to. A union with one seemed foolish. But the Queen saw something the others didn't. Humans carried rare immunity, something their healers believed could awaken dormant strength in her people. Their survival depended on this alliance. So she married him. The ceremony was unlike any in their history. Half royal tradition, half improvisation to include human customs, Elias shyly explained. The Queen stood tall, dressed in shimmering armor like silk, while Elias simply wore a dark suit, nervously adjusting the collar as if it were choking him. And yet, when he took her hand, he held it gently, as if aware of the weight she carried every day. For the first time in years, the Queen felt her chest soften. But marriage to a human invited whispers. Many doubted him. Some resented him. Others waited for the moment his weakness would embarrass their queen. Elias noticed the cold looks but never complained. He walked the palace halls like a quiet shadow, greeting guards by name, listening to servants' stories, repairing little things around the palace that no one else had bothered to fix. His kindness spread slowly, softening even the hardest hearts, but the Queen's elite warriors still doubted him. One night, after a long council meeting, the Queen returned to her private chambers, exhausted from endless arguments. To her surprise, Elias was sitting by the balcony, repairing a broken lantern with steady hands. "You should rest," she said. He smiled without looking up. "I will, but this thing has been bothering me for 3 days. I wanted to fix it before you came in." She watched him quietly. He did not know how rare this moment was, someone doing something for her without expecting anything in return. "You work too much," she said softly. "And you carry too much," he replied, still calm. The Queen opened her mouth to answer, but a sudden tremor shook the palace. A distant alarm echoed, deep and urgent, the kind used only for immediate threats. Elias stood instantly, the half-fixed lantern forgotten. "What is that?" The Queen's face hardened. A border breach. Someone entered the palace grounds without permission. Before she could call her guards, her chamber doors burst open. Captain, her most loyal warrior, arrived with 2 soldiers. "My queen, intruders have been sighted near the inner gardens," he said. "We are tracking them now." Elias stepped forward. "Let me help." Gave him a cold, humorless stare. "With respect, human consort, this is not your battle." But Elias didn't back down. "She's my wife, that makes it my concern." The Queen felt a strange warmth bloom inside her at those words. She nodded. "He comes with us." Hesitated but obeyed. Together they rushed through the winding corridors, the alarms echoing above them. When they reached the inner gardens, moonlight fell across shattered branches and claw marks carved into the walls. The intruder was no ordinary spy. Something large and powerful had broken through. A low growl rumbled from the shadows. The Queen drew her blade, raised his spear. But Elias did something none of them expected. He stepped forward calmly, eyes focused, jaw tight, not with fear but with a deep, steady resolve. The Queen watched him, confused. Something about his stance, the way he moved, it was not the posture of a weak human. It was the posture of someone who had faced danger many times before. She felt her breath catch. She had married him for alliance. She had not realized she had married a man hiding a strength she had never imagined. And in the next heartbeat, that hidden strength would reveal itself. The creature stepped out of the darkness with slow, heavy breaths. Its skin was dark like burnt metal, and its eyes glowed a sickly green. Long claws scraped against the stone floor, leaving sparks behind. This was no simple intruder. It was a beast, a predator that did not belong anywhere near the palace, let alone the Queen's private gardens. Queen tightened her grip on her blade. Captain and the guards formed a defensive circle around her. Only Ilias stood slightly ahead of them, not behind. His pulse quickened at the sight. He should have been afraid. He should have hidden. He should have run. Instead, he looked strangely calm. The beast let out a piercing roar that shook the air. Leaves scattered, branches cracked, and the guards braced themselves. Shouted, "Human consort, fall back." But Ilias didn't move. He stared at the creature with a focus that startled even the Queen. She had never seen that look in his eyes before, like a memory of battle waking inside him. The beast lunged. The guards prepared to fight, but Ilias reacted first. In the blink of an eye, he grabbed a fallen metal rod from the ground and stepped into the creature's path. His movements were smooth, controlled, almost practiced. He struck the rod against the beast, jaw with surprising force. The metal echoed with a sharp ring, and the beast stumbled sideways, momentarily confused. His eyes widened. That hit, no normal human should have produced that kind of strength. Ilias stepped back, breathing steadily, not even shaken. "Stay behind me," he shouted, not to save himself, but to shield the Queen. The guards looked stunned, unsure whether to obey or drag him to safety. The creature recovered fast. It roared again and rushed forward with even more fury. Tried to intercept, but the beast knocked him aside with a heavy swipe, sending him crashing into a tree. Gasped, groaned, unable to rise. The beast turned its glowing eyes toward the Queen. Before it could leap, Ilias charged. He didn't hesitate, he didn't doubt. He moved like a man who had fought monsters before. He slammed into the beast's side with all his weight, forcing its attack off course. The creature screeched, furious that a weak human dared challenge it. Ilias rolled to his feet, gripping the rod tightly. The Queen felt her heart hammering, not from fear but from disbelief. She had been trained since childhood to read warriors. Her entire life revolved around leading soldiers, understanding strength, identifying courage. And Ilias was revealing a part of himself she had never seen. The beast turned and slammed its claws down. Ilias barely dodged, the strike tearing through the stone floor where he had stood a moment earlier. Dust exploded into the air. Ilias cried without thinking. "I'm fine," he answered, voice steady but breath short. The creature lunged again, claws raised high. Ilias couldn't dodge this time, it was too fast. His throat tightened. But Ilias didn't run. Instead, he planted his feet and raised the metal rod in a defensive stance that looked far too trained for a simple traveler. The beast struck. The impact was brutal. The rod bent under the force, but Ilias held firm, teeth clenched. His boots slid across the ground, carving lines in the dirt, but he didn't fall. His entire body shook with the effort of holding back the creature. Felt her chest ache. She could see the strain in his arms, the tension in his muscles. Humans weren't built for this. They didn't have the strength of, and yet he refused to yield. Struggling to stand, whispered, "Impossible." Ilias pushed with a sudden burst of force, knocking the beast back. The bent rod fell from his hands, useless now. The creature snarled and prepared to strike again. Moved instinctively. She leaped forward and slashed her blade across its face. The beast reeled, green blood dripping onto the grass. She stepped beside Ilias, breathing heavily. "You shouldn't have done that," she said, voice shaking. "And you shouldn't stand alone," Ilias answered. Their eyes met, hers filled with worry, his burning with determination. The beast roared, angrier than before. It charged again, ready to end both of them. Elias grabbed arm, duck. They dropped low as the creature leaped over them and crashed into a stone pillar, shattering it into chunks. Guards finally regrouped. Shouted, "Attack now!" The soldiers surged forward together, spears raised, pushing the creature back toward the garden wall. Remained beside Elias, unable to stop staring at him. He had protected her. He had fought a monster with his bare strength. He had stood between her and death without a second thought. When the beast finally fell under the combined assault of the guards, silence washed over the garden. Limped toward the queen. "Are you injured?" "No," she said softly, her eyes fixed on Elias. "But I have questions." Elias wiped dust from his face and forced a small smile. "I know, and I'll answer them." But behind that smile, something else lingered. Something heavy, something hidden. Felt her heartbeat quicken. Her husband was not the man she thought he was. He was something more. Something dangerous. Something powerful. And she was finally beginning to understand that the quiet human who fixed lanterns was a warrior with a past wrapped in secrets. After the beast was dragged away, the moonlit garden seemed too quiet. The shattered stones, the claw marks, the broken pillar, everything felt like a strange dream. Guards moved around, checking for more threats, but Queen saw only one person. Elias. He stood near the cracked fountain, chest rising and falling with slow breaths. His hands were shaking, not with fear, but with exhaustion. That metal rod he used now lay twisted on the ground. Even a trained soldier would have broken their arm doing what he did. Yet there he was, standing as if he had simply finished a long day's work. The queen walked toward him, her steps soft but firm. Elias lifted his head the moment he sensed her, offering a tired smile. "You scared me," she said quietly. He rubbed the back of his neck. "That wasn't my intention. You faced a beast alone. Humans are not built for that." Elias looked away, his jaw tightening. "Yeah," he murmured, "I know." Studied him carefully. She could not understand it. His stance, his speed, the way he held that rod like a trained fighter. None of it matched the man she had married. Finally she asked, "Who taught you to fight like that?" Elias hesitated. For the first time since they met, she saw fear, not of the beast, but of the question. "I don't know if you want the truth," he whispered. "I always want the truth," she said. But before he could speak, Captain approached, his armor cracked and his face bruised. "My queen," he said, "we must secure the area, more beasts might follow." Nodded, "See to it." Then she turned back to Elias. "Come, walk with me." They moved through the palace halls, passing guards who saluted with wide, confused eyes. Word of the incident had already spread. Many stared at Elias, whispering behind their hands. A human standing against a beast was unheard of, impossible, yet he had done it. They reached a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The wind was cool and carried the scent of night flowers. Here, the queen finally spoke again. "Elias, you have hidden strength, hidden training, hidden courage." Her voice softened. "Why hide it from me?" Elias leaned on the railing, staring at the glowing city lights. For a long time, he didn't answer. "When I was younger," he finally said, "I was part of a human defense group on a distant colony world. A lot of people there lived under constant danger, raiders, creatures, storms. Someone had to protect them, so I learned how to fight, how to survive." Listened quietly, feeling a strange ache in her chest. "But something happened," Elias continued, his voice rough. "We were attacked one night, our walls failed, the creatures came through, I fought as hard as I could, but I couldn't save everyone." He swallowed hard, gripping the railing until his knuckles turned white. "I lost friends, I lost people who trusted me. After that, I swore I would never fight again unless I had no choice. I left everything behind and became a traveler." Felt her heart tighten. The pain in his voice was raw, real, and heavy. "So when you asked me to marry you," Elias said softly, "I wanted to give your people hope. I wanted to help them live, but I also hoped you never see the part of me that still remembers those nights." The queen stepped closer, her voice gentle. "Elias, you saved my life tonight." "I just didn't want to lose anyone again," he whispered. His breath caught. She had expected secrets, maybe a shameful past, maybe a lie. But she had not expected a heart that carried wounds even deeper than her own. She placed a hand on his arm, feeling the warmth of his skin. "You are not weak," she said. "You are not a burden. You are something I did not know I needed." Elias looked up, surprised. But their moment of silence broke when footsteps echoed behind them, appeared again, bowing. "My queen," he said, voice urgent. "We found more signs. The beast didn't enter alone. There are tracks, many of them. Something is hunting inside the borders of the capital." Straightened, her expression sharpening. Elias stepped beside her instantly. Hesitated, then added quietly, "I believe the attack was not random." The queen's heart chilled. "Then who sent it?" she asked. His eyes darkened. "I fear someone inside the palace." Felt the weight of the words settle like a storm on her shoulders. And Elias, standing beside her with quiet strength, knew one thing. His secret was no longer a burden he could hide. He would have to fight not for strangers, but for his wife, her people, and the fragile hope they shared. The palace halls felt colder after swarming. The queen walked with a straight back, but her mind churned with doubt. Someone inside the palace, a person she trusted, had allowed a deadly beast to enter her home. It was a betrayal she had never expected. Elias followed beside her. His steps were calm, yet his eyes searched every shadow, every corner. He was no longer the quiet traveler. A watchful sharpness had returned to him, an old instinct that refused to sleep now that danger threatened the queen again. Led Elias and into the war council chamber, a round room with tall windows and glowing blue crystals lighting the ceiling. Maps covered the walls, showing every inch of her kingdom. Tonight, however, the room felt like it belonged to strangers. "Who would do this?" asked, anger trembling in his voice. "Who would dare risk the queen's life?" Didn't answer. Her eyes moved across the faces of the council leaders gathering around the table. Some looked tired, others looked anxious. A few looked too calm. The queen spoke first. "A beast was released inside my private gardens. These creatures do not wander alone. Someone guided it. Someone opened the gates for it." Gasps spread around the room. One councilman, a thin, pale-skinned named Lord, stepped forward. "My queen, surely such a monster could not have been brought into the palace without great effort. Are you certain it was not an outside attack?" Narrowed her eyes. The inner gates showed manual override. "Only my council or my royal guard can access those controls." A heavy silence followed. Elias stood at the edge of the room, his hands behind his back, watching everyone carefully. He wasn't royalty. He had no political power, but he understood danger when he saw it. And the tension in the chamber reminded him of old memories, times when betrayal hid behind polite faces. Slammed his fist on the table. "Whoever did this will pay. Give me time and I will find them." "Time is exactly what we don't have," said. "If there are more creatures, more traps, more plots." At that moment, Elias stepped forward. "May I speak?" All eyes turned to him, some filled with resentment. He was still an outsider to them, a human in their sacred hall, but nodded. "I'll speak," she said. Elias took a breath. The creature tonight wasn't trying to escape. It was heading straight toward the queen. That means someone wasn't just testing the defenses. They were targeting her specifically. The council muttered in alarm. Lord's jaw tightened. Elias continued. "That also means they will try again. Whoever is behind this won't stop now." His voice stayed steady, simple, and sincere, but full of truth. Felt a strange comfort in hearing him speak. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't a court advisor, but he saw danger clearly, without fear or hesitation. Lord stepped forward with a mocking smile. "And what would a human wanderer know about threats to our queen?" Elias held his gaze, enough to know when someone is lying. The room froze. Even blinked in surprise. Smile faltered. "I beg your pardon." Elias looked at him calmly. "Your scent changed when the queen mentioned the gate override. You were nervous, and you're the only one who hasn't asked a single question about the beast, almost like you expected it. Whispers spread through the chamber. Watched shoulders stiffen. Something flickered in his eyes, a small crack in his controlled expression. Stepped forward snarling, "Answer him." Lifted his chin. "This is absurd. Why would I attack the queen? My loyalty is unquestionable." Elias didn't raise his voice. He didn't step closer, but his words cut deeper than any blade. "Then why are your boots covered in garden soil?" His face went pale. Every head turned toward the councilman's feet. Green dust clung to the edges of his boots, the same pollen that only grew in the queen's inner garden where the beast had appeared. His heart hardened. As she said slowly, "Kneel." The councilman's posture cracked. His eyes darted around like a trapped animal. For a heartbeat, Elias saw something dark flicker in him. Then moved. He twisted quickly, pulling a hidden blade from his sleeve and lunging toward the queen with a desperate cry. Before any guard could react, Elias launched forward. He covered the distance in a single leap, grabbed by the waist, and spun her out of the attack's path just as the blade sliced the air where she had been standing a moment before. Felt his arms tighten around her. Warm, strong, protective. A feeling she hadn't known she needed until now. Stumbled, surprised by Elias' speed, but tackled him to the ground, disarming him in a burst of fury. Guards rushed to secure the traitor. Turned to Elias, breath unsteady. "You saved me again." Elias shook his head. "I'm not letting anyone harm you." He said it so softly, so truthfully, that her heart trembled. But the danger wasn't over. Laughed a bitter, broken sound. "You fools, you have no idea what is coming." Stepped closer, her voice cold as steel. "Then you will tell me." The traitor smiled with dark satisfaction. "You cannot stop it. The beasts were only the beginning." Elias felt a chill coil through his spine. He knew that tone. He had heard it before, from enemies who believed destruction was already in motion. The Queen's kingdom was under attack, and this time the real threat had not yet shown its face. His wicked smile lingered even as guards dragged him toward the lower cells. His laughter echoed down the hall like a cold wind. Queen watched him disappear before turning back to Elias. His hands were still slightly tense from catching her, and his breath came in quick, controlled waves. "Are you hurt?" he asked her quietly. "No," she whispered, "thanks to you." But the warmth of that moment ended when returned with a grave expression. "My queen, he refuses to speak further," the captain said, "but he mentioned the beginning. That means more events are planned." Nodded, "Take me to him." Elias stepped forward immediately. "I'm coming with you." She didn't argue. Something inside her had changed after nearly losing him to the beast and then again to the blade in the council room. Having him near no longer felt like a formality. It gave her strength. The three descended into the underground prison. Torches flickered along stone walls, casting long shadows. The guards opened the cell where sat, shackled to a metal chair. He wasn't angry. He wasn't fearful. He looked triumphant. Approached him slowly. "Tell me who you are working with." Lifted his chin. "Someone who will free the throne from weakness." Elias narrowed his eyes. "Weakness, you mean peace." Spit on the ground. "Peace makes a kingdom soft. Our enemies grow while we kneel. But the queen," he smirked at, "she married a human. You showed the galaxy that have become dependent on lesser species." His jaw clenched. "Humans are not lesser." His voice dropped to a dark whisper. "His presence dishonors all of us." Slammed his fist against the bars. "You coward." But only laughed, calm and arrogant. "You cannot stop what has already begun. My allies are already inside the capital, and when they strike, the throne will fall." Leaned closer. "Who are they?" Smile widened. "Who have not forgotten our true strength." Before she could speak again, a loud rumble shook the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling. The torches flickered violently. Elias spun toward the entrance. "That wasn't an earthquake." Shouted orders to the guards. Secure the prison, prepare for combat. But another thunderous sound followed, deeper and closer. Screams echoed from far above. Turn to Ilias, we need to get out. As they rushed back up the stairs, the sounds grew clearer. Claws scraping stone, armor colliding with something massive, shouts of pain and panic. When they burst into the palace courtyard, the sight made freeze. A massive armored creature towered above the guards, its back covered in dark plates and glowing red veins. It roared, sending warriors flying with a single swing of its tail. 3 smaller beasts leaped across the rooftops, tearing through archers and collapsing balcony railings. Ilias stared with disbelief. These aren't natural beasts, someone modified them. Drew his blade. Wasn't lying, they're already inside the capital. His heart pounded with fury and fear. Her people were dying, her guards were being crushed. Smoke rose from burning sections of the palace. She reached for her sword. But a violent crash knocked her off her feet as one of the smaller beasts rammed into the side towers. Ilias grabbed her just before she hit the ground. They rolled as debris fell around them. "Are you all right?" he asked breathlessly. "Yes," she said, her voice shaking. A burning pillar began to fall directly toward them. Ilias reacted before thought. He pushed away and braced himself beneath the collapsing stone. His arms trembled, his legs dug into the dirt, and his teeth clenched as he held the weight. Gasped Ilias. The guards stared in shock. No human should have been able to lift even a fraction of that pillar. But Ilias held it, veins straining, muscles shaking under the pressure. He shouted through clenched teeth, "Move!" Pulled out of the danger zone. Only then did Ilias throw the pillar aside with a desperate surge of strength. He collapsed to one knee, panting hard. Ran to him, placing her hands on his shoulders. You lifted that, how?" Ilias wiped blood from his brow. "I don't know. Humans have bursts of strength sometimes, but this felt different." Before she could ask more, one of the large beasts turned toward them, eyes glowing with dark crimson light. It charged. Ilias pulled behind him. "Stay behind me." "No," she said fiercely, drawing her sword. "We fight together." The beast roared, shaking the courtyard. Ilias tightened his fists, raised her blade. The enemy closed in. And for the first time, the queen realized something terrifying and beautiful. Her human husband was nowhere near the limit of his strength. The courtyard trembled beneath the creature's charge. Its roar rolled like thunder across the shattered palace walls. Soldiers scrambled for cover, arrows snapped under its heavy steps, and flames spread across the broken stones. Ilias stepped forward. Not away. Not to the side. Forward. Almost grabbed him, but something in his eyes stopped her. There was no fear there, only a deep, burning resolve she had never seen before. A calm fury, a promise that he would not let this night destroy her kingdom. The beast lunged. Ilias dodged left, rolling across the ground, and grabbed a broken spear shaft lying near a fallen guard. It wasn't sharp, it wasn't strong, but it was something. The creature's claws swept past him, carving deep scars into the stone floor. Rushed in from the opposite side, swinging her glowing blade across the beast's leg. Sparks erupted from the impact. The creature staggered but did not fall. And his remaining guards formed a circle around them, keeping smaller beasts at bay. Captain shouted, "Hold the perimeter," nodded and lifted his blade. "Protect the queen, protect the king." But another explosion rocked the palace walls as a second beast smashed through the west gate, scattering debris in every direction. The soldiers fought bravely, but exhaustion spread fast. One by one, they were pushed back. They needed a miracle. Ilias ran toward the first beast again, jumping onto a broken column to gain height. With a fierce war cry, he leapt onto the creature's back and drove the spear shaft into the gap between its armor plates. The creature shrieked in rage, thrashing violently. Felt her chest clench, Ilias. He held on, muscles straining, fighting against the creature's wild movements. Every shake could have flung him across the courtyard like a rag doll, but he endured, gripping, pushing deeper. The beast slammed itself against a wall, trying to crush him. Dust burst into the air. Stone cracked. Elias' ribs burned with pain, but he remained locked in place. Rushed toward them, but the second beast blocked her path, forcing her to fight defensively. Elias finally tore out the makeshift weapon and plunged it again with all the strength in his body. This time, the beast collapsed to its knees, roaring in agony. Seized the opening. She sprinted forward, jumped high, and drove her sword deep into the creature's skull. A flash of blue energy burst from the blade, and the monster fell still. The courtyard fell silent for half a heartbeat. Elias staggered back, breath shaking, sweat dripping down his face, hurried to him, lifting his face gently. "Are you hurt?" "Just tired," he panted. But there was no time to rest. The second beast roared, its tail smashing through a garden archway. And the guards tried to surround it, but two soldiers were thrown aside like leaves in a storm. Grabbed Elias' hand. "We end this together." He nodded, squeezing her hand. "Together." They faced the creature side by side. It charged with terrifying speed. Struck first, slashing its shoulder to divert its path. Elias ducked under its claws and slammed his fist into a small crack in its armor, one he had noticed earlier while fighting the first beast. The impact sent a shock through his arm, but the armor dented. Spun behind the creature and sliced the tendons of its leg. It stumbled, angry and off balance. Elias climbed a fallen column and jumped, grabbing one of the horns on its head. The beast thrashed again, but this time he didn't try to pierce it. He used his body weight, everything he had, and twisted the horn with all the strength inside him. There was a sickening crack. The beast screamed, losing control as its head jerked sideways, sprinted toward its exposed neck. With a fierce cry, she drove her sword through the final gap in its armor. The creature toppled, crashing onto the ground with a massive thud. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Smoke drifted. Flames crackled. The palace groaned under the damage. Elias leaned forward, hands on his knees, chest heaving, placed a steadying hand on his back. "You fought like someone trained for war," she said quietly. Elias gave a weak smile. "Feels like someone I used to be." She touched his face, lifting it. "No, that strength isn't about your past, it's about your heart." Before he could answer, a troop of guards rushed into the courtyard, their faces pale. "My queen," one shouted. "From the watchtowers we see dark smoke rising across the city, more attacks, multiple beasts." His breath caught. Elias straightened, wiping blood from his lip. His exhaustion vanished behind a determined fire. "Then we need to move," he said. "Your people are out there, they need you." Nodded and tightened her grip on her sword. Stepped in front of them. "My queen, where will we go first?" Looked at Elias. Elias looked at the burning city. "We go," he said, "where the danger is greatest." And for the first time, the soldiers saw it clearly. The queen did not stand alone. Her human husband was ready to stand against an entire army. With nothing but courage, fists, and a heart that refused to break. The sun had not yet risen over the palace when stood on the highest balcony, her hands gripping the cold railing. Beneath her, the capital city waited in tense silence. The battle from the previous night had left marks on every corner, broken towers, cracked shields, and scorch marks that spread like dark veins across the stone. But none of that mattered to her now. She was searching for one person. Her human husband. Her impossible miracle. Her heart that refused to stop worrying. She remembered the last thing she saw before he vanished in the night. The way his body glowed with a quiet fire. The way his voice held a strange calmness. The way he whispered that he had one last thing to do. He had walked into the shadows alone. A queen should have stayed strong. But a wife, she trembled with fear. Behind her, the palace guards stood like statues, but they kept glancing at her with anxious eyes. The entire kingdom knew the truth now, was not simply human. He held a force inside him that even the old legends never mentioned. He had fought armies without losing his breath. He had destroyed machines that looked undefeatable. He had stood between and death more times than she could count. And yet she would trade all of his power for just one thing, his safety. A quiet horn echoed through the sleeping city. His head snapped up. A small group walked through the main gate, tired soldiers limping, armor damaged, and in the middle of them, walking slowly, covered in ash and dust. Her heart fell, then rose again in a single fierce beat. She did not wait for any announcement. She did not wait for the stairs. She ran through the palace like a storm, down the hall, past the guards, down the steps until she reached the courtyard. Her breath came fast, her hair wild around her face, but she did not stop. When saw her, he lifted his head. His eyes looked exhausted but warm. He took one step toward her before his legs almost gave out. Caught him before anyone else could. His body felt heavy against her, but she held him tightly, refusing to let go. The soldiers paused, watching their queen hold a man like he was the only thing that mattered. "You came back," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I promised you I would," he replied, his voice soft, as if each word cost strength he didn't have any more. She placed her hand on his cheek. "What happened out there?" Exhaled slowly, leaning on her shoulder. "The enemy had one last weapon, a machine powered by stolen cores. I couldn't let it reach the city." He paused, breathing shakily. "So I broke it." Stared at him, alone. "I didn't want anyone else getting hurt." Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of a love so deep it almost frightened her. Had never fought to show off. Never fought to impress. He fought because he cared, because his heart was too soft to let others fall. "Your strength," she said, her voice trembling, "is not just power, it is kindness." He smiled a tired, soft smile. "I'm human, that's what we do. We protect what we love." Those words settled in her like sunlight. The palace physicians rushed in then, but refused to move far. She stayed at side while they checked him, cleaned his wounds, and wrapped his bruised hands. He never complained. He only kept looking at her as if making sure she didn't vanish. Later, when the city gathered to honor their savior, stood on the palace steps with his arm looped through his. The cheers filled the air, loud, grateful, alive. People held banners with bright symbols. Children climbed on their parents' shoulders just to get a glimpse of the human who had saved them. Looked overwhelmed, but squeezed his hand. "You belong here," she said. He looked at her surprised. "Do I?" "You are my husband," she said, "and today you are the hero of this kingdom." He swallowed hard, emotion rising in his eyes. "I didn't want to be a hero." "I know," she whispered. "That's why you became one." The crowd roared again, chanting his name. Watched his face soften with quiet pride. That night, when the celebrations ended and the palace grew calm again, and stood alone in the garden where they first met. Lanterns floated above them, glowing like gentle stars. Reached for her hand. "Are you still afraid of me after seeing what I can do?" She stepped closer and pressed her forehead against his. "No," she said. "I am afraid of losing you. Your strength does not scare me. Your heart is what holds me." Closed his eyes and exhaled a trembling breath. "Then I am yours completely." And under the soft lights, with the night wind carrying the scent of flowers, kissed him. Slow, tender, full of all the emotions she never had the courage to speak. A queen and her human. A kingdom saved by impossible power. A love strengthened by danger, fear, and hope. And together they stood unbreakable.